שלום לכולם, ברוכים הבאים לפסטיבל קולנוע רוחני. אנחנו לוקחים עוד כמה שניות כדי להעלות את השידור הזה גם לפייסבוק, אז עוד רגע אנחנו נתחיל. Hi Steve, we'll take one moment till this webinar will go live on Facebook, so yeah, hold for a few seconds please, okay?
Sounds good.
Sorry, it takes more than 1 minute.
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah, the Facebook is responding here really slow somehow today. Let's see.
That's okay, I'm in no rush, so.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The egg's okay?
Okay, unsuccessful try, but it's okay. We will put it on Facebook in just right after it's. I don't know. Somehow Facebook is not responding quick enough for us.
Okay, so you're gonna do it like a pre-recorded interview and then put it up?
So we have few people here already, and yeah, we will see if they will contribute some of the questions, and if not, we will just have a nice conversation between us.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Good. אז ברוכים הבאים לפסטיבל קולנוע רוחני, וברוכים הבאים מי שנמצא כאן לשיחה עם יוצר הסרט סטיב אלקינס. סטיב אלקינס יצר את הסרט הידהוד של הבלתי נראה, Echoes of the Invisible. Welcome Steve. We're very happy to have you here in Spirit Film Festival.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
And I want to welcome everybody else that are here with us. רק להגיד לאנשים, מי שרוצה להשתתף בשיחה ולשאול שאלות, יש לשונית קטנה כתוב עליה Q&A, אתם יכולים לכתוב את השאלות שלכם שם, ואני אעביר אותם לסטיב. All right, so I'm switching to English now. I'm fully with you. So really beautiful to have you in our film festival, and also want to congratulate you for the prize that you won in SXSW. Just
thank you.
April or March or something like this, you know, back then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The beginning of the crazy pandemic time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very nice thing to learn about, you know, during a kind of heavy time. So yeah, I'm still really grateful for that.
Yeah, I know it's weird to launch a film in this time.
Yeah.
Somehow this year is just like took us in surprise. Also for us to run a festival online, it's totally a new experience, and that we didn't see it coming somehow.
Right.
And we really miss all the crowd and the happening of the festival. Usually it's really like a big festival with thousands of attendance, and we you know, we get to meet so many people are coming, and we're sitting in the theaters, and we can really see the response of people, and probably you would be there with your film, and
yeah, that would be amazing.
Have dinner together in Tel Aviv, and yeah, but
that would be so wonderful. Yeah, I think for all filmmakers dealing with releasing a film this year, it's a similar situation. I mean, I know certainly for me and probably for many others, it's one of the main reasons you make a film is to really connect with people and to meet people you never would have met otherwise, have conversations, make connections. And, you know, so much of that is being lost because of the circumstances this year. But it also makes me think, you know, thank goodness we live in a time where we do have Zoom and the internet where we can still at least talk through that. I mean, if this happened, you know, 25 years ago, we wouldn't have any of it, you know. So I guess we should count our blessings where we have them.
That's totally true. So we are really blessed to have, and actually for us, like we are like a festival with kind of, let's say, small budget. So we cannot really allow to bring all the filmmakers into the festival. So now we can talk with all of them on on Zoom. So this
Yeah,
is beautiful and blessing.
that's great.
So maybe um, for the people that didn't watch yet your film and will see this conversation, maybe you can tell us a little bit in your own words what this film about.
Sure, I'll try. It's funny because even after all these years of making it and now it's released, I still sometimes struggle to sum up what it's about because it's about so many things at once. I guess what I would say is it's about it follows many people's stories from different walks of life and certain unexpected things that connect them. So one of the things that connects them is these are all people who are going into some of the most remote and extreme environments on Earth. The hottest places on Earth, the driest places on Earth. They're going to live 40 kilometers from shore on the frozen surface of the world's deepest lake in Siberia. And I sort of asked this question, like, what drives people into these extreme and remote parts of the world? There are several interesting things that came up in my research about this. One of them is that these are all people who are struggling to push the boundaries of our knowledge, and they're struggling to see the invisible. They're trying to see something that would otherwise be invisible, whatever their walk of life is. So I kind of show in the film journalists, athletes, artists, monks, and how by going to some of these last remaining extreme remote environments left on Earth that haven't been developed and suburbanized and everything else, those locations allow us to see things that we couldn't see otherwise, things that may soon be lost to us. So it kind of then becomes a film in a way about our sensitivities and how do we connect with our surroundings and with both the people around us and nature, which raises some spiritual questions as well.
So the first idea that came to you when you thought about what was the seed of the film was just like the meeting of these people. This is what inspired you to make the film, or it was like something?
Well, I think what inspired me at the time, it was a mystery because it was a flash of an idea that came into my mind about 10 years ago. But when I think back on it, the moment when I had that idea, it kind of makes sense because I had been traveling a lot during that time working on my previous feature, which is called The Reach of Resonance. And in the weeks leading up to getting this idea, I had been driving through the deserts of the Southwest in the US, so like Arizona, New Mexico, going through a lot of really remote desert areas. And I was actually visually seeing, when you're in such expansive remote areas, there's not very much to see at all. So when you see anything, it really sticks out. And I noticed that there were patterns in what kinds of people or places were being built in these remote locations. It was almost always a science experiment, like a science lab somewhere, or like a remote art sculpture of some kind in the middle of nowhere, or there were monasteries. And sometimes these things were right next to each other. And I thought, oh, how interesting. These people who are, asking very different questions and coming from different walks of life have to come to these same environments to do what they do, to either look further outward, like in the case of astronomers, for example, or look further inward, like the monks or the artists. So I kind of was in an environment in which I was seeing that around me. And I think it just kind of worked its way into my subconscious so that a few weeks later, when I was reflecting on that trip, I don't know, it just seemed like I suddenly became interested in that question of what is it that connects all these different people from these different walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was like the dialogue in the film about the search for silence was this, what jumped up as the strongest motive, yeah, because and there is like a beautiful dialogue there from, you brought the scientists that are searching for the silence, and the spiritual seekers, the monks and this Ethiopian religious people there in the cave, which is like an incredible story there. And yeah, this was like really echoing within me, like that there is like this amazing, like the scientists that are looking for silence to reach out for a better understanding of the universe. And on the other side, there is this monks and spiritual seekers that need the silence to go deeper within. Yeah.
Yes.
You saw that in the beginning of the film, or like?
Believe it or not right at the beginning, but it did come about pretty early on once I started making it. So this was just one of the very exciting discoveries of making the film. You know, I set out with a very kind of abstract idea where I was thinking about, well, what is it that connects all these different people going to these remote locations? And I didn't really know what the answers were going to be or what I would discover along the way. The earliest idea that I had of what connected them is that, well, these are all people who are going to extreme lengths or extreme struggles to gain a deeper understanding of the larger context in which we live, whether they're monks or scientists or whatever. But, you know, I very quickly discovered that it was the silence that was bringing these people together to many of these locations. And by the way, for anyone who hasn't seen the film yet, when we're referring to silence, it refers not just to literal silence in your environment, but a technological silence as well. Because in the case of the scientists, one of their big struggles now is that there are signals going through the air all around the earth from our cell phone towers, from television towers, all that stuff. There's just so much noise in the air that we can't see with our own eyes, but you know, it completely obstructs their view of whatever they're trying to look at in the cosmos, or if they're particle physicists looking at the smallest imaginable things, you know, those things obstruct their views as well. So, so it kind of looks at silence from a number of different perspectives and how that is obscuring things to us, which it's making them invisible.
Yeah. Yeah, it is beautiful to see, because we are really lacking this space of really pure silence right now on the planet. It's really rare places that you can find that it's absolute silence, and you can see the stars with no pollution, light pollution or all kind of pollution.
Right, absolutely. And it's interesting you brought that up, because something that's been on my mind a lot lately with the stars is that I don't know if you've heard any reports about this, but there are a number of companies who are putting satellites up into the Earth's atmosphere. They're orbiting fairly close to Earth to give us higher speed internet, and they're launching them up very fast. A lot of them, I can't remember the numbers, but in the next 20, 30 years, I think there's going to be thousands of them. And already, and they're already obscuring our actual vision of the skies with our own eyes, not even with like scientific detectors. And it's, you know, they're saying that if they continue to put them up at this rate, just so we can get higher speed internet, we may be the last generation that actually sees a sky of real stars instead of artificial ones. You know, future generations may look up and they'll look like stars, but they're actually man-made satellites, which is, you know, kind of a scary thing. But it's just an extension of, I think, one of the themes that the film was trying to explore, that, you know, what is the cost of, you know, basically our way of life, and what is it making invisible? Like, there are certain conveniences and privileges that it allows us to be able to connect with each other faster and more easily, but there's something that gets disconnected along the way as well. So it's always kind of a dance and interplay between those two things. And you know, it's good to look at that. What are we losing in order to gain what we think we're gaining?
So let's talk about a little bit about the people that you choose to be the characters in this film. how did you find them?
Yeah, it was a long journey. So I worked on the film for about 7 or 8 years, on and off. So really the earliest people I filmed were mainly the scientists, the monks, and then Al Arnold, who was the character in the film who ran across Death Valley, a blind man who ran across Death Valley, for those of you who haven't seen it. Death Valley, if you don't know, is one of the hottest places on Earth. It's arguably the hottest. I think I was seeking out those people originally because the first idea that came to me for the film was kind of in my mind. I was juxtaposing astronomers working out in the desert, remote desert like monks to look into space, and then thinking about literal monks in India I had seen who were bowing their way across the Himalayas. And so I sought out what are the most extreme science experiments in the most extreme environments on Earth right now. So I went to Chile very early on and filmed astronomers there. And then I filmed monks in different parts of the world. But the runner in Death Valley was actually the very first person I filmed, because at the time I was thinking of his endeavor as being an extreme undertaking of the human body to ask much larger questions beyond himself about his relationship to nature and to the earth and to his surroundings. You know, my big question for him was, why did you do this? Why would you do such an insane thing? And I didn't know what he would tell me, but it turns out his answer was perfect for my project without either of us realizing it at the time, which was that it wasn't because he was trying to accomplish an athletic feat. It was a way of dealing with his blindness, you know, his struggle to see in the dark. And little did he know that was precisely one of the things that connects everyone in the film, is that they're all trying to see something in the dark. And that's what pushed him to run such incredible distances in such extreme conditions. So anyway, over time, so after starting with the scientists, the monks, and then Al, the runner, I just kept seeking out more examples of people pushing the human body to extremes and people pushing technology to extremes. So I would have that contrast. And eventually I met Rachel Sussman, the photographer, who's traveling. She spent 10 years traveling around the world, finding and photographing the world's oldest continuously living things. She gave herself, yeah. For anyone who hasn't seen the film, it started when she visited a tree in Japan that is believed to be about 7,000 years old. And so she thought to herself, well, how many other living creatures are there around the world that are this old? And she found quite a number. And as it turns out, they go to these same extreme remote locations, or they live and thrive in these same extreme remote locations as the humans. And for similar reasons, which is kind of a remarkable discovery along the way. And then sort of the last addition to the film, at least. And
you traveled with her a little bit? You shoot her in the places that she was finding these crazy ancient creatures?
Here's an interesting thing about this. So I had already filmed in many of the locations where she went on her journey, but I was not with her. And this is because she finished the journey before I met her. But very, like, I think she had just finished it when I met her in 2014, and she was giving a slideshow presentation at a local museum in Los Angeles where I met her. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, like she went to all the same places I did, and you know, what she was trying to accomplish through her photography is a similar theme to what the people in my film are after. But at the time, I didn't think about putting her into it. I was just very interested in what she was doing. But later I realized, when I wanted to add some more people into the film to make the themes more clear, that it was a remarkable coincidence that independently of each other, they had gone to the same places as me for the same reasons. So I already had footage of my own that I had filmed in these locations. Like Rachel went to a remote part of Siberia that I had been in. She went to the Bristlecone Pines where I had been filming. She went to Death Valley, you know, on and on. So I could use the footage that I already had in those exact locations to illustrate a journey she actually took there. But I was not with her, which is kind of the funny thing about.
Yeah, in the edit of the film, it feels like you were there with her, because it's like
that's great.
You take us from the Dead Valley, and then suddenly she is there and doing research with the plants, and so.
Yeah, exactly. So Chile, she went to the exact high altitude desert in the Andes Mountains in Chile that I had to visit the astronomers. And I just thought, this is actually very meaningful. I didn't have to go there with her, because the fact that we were led there on our own separate journeys for the same reasons really spoke volumes to me. So I just made sure to tie it all together as seamlessly as I could with what I had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk a little bit about Paul.
Sure. Yeah. So Paul Celapec is a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. And he has devoted, I think at this point, probably the rest of his life to walking across the earth. He wants to slow journalism down to walking pace, because he's been doing journalism since the 80s. And he's seen the difference between how journalism works before the internet and after the internet. And right now, because of the fast pace of journalism, where everybody's trying to make the next day's headlines, because consumers are just gobbling things up so quickly, we've kind of lost long-term investigative journalism. It doesn't really exist much anymore. Mm-hmm. So we have the illusion that we are more intimately connected to the world than ever because of the speed at which we get our information. But I think he believes that we're less connected to the world than ever, because the nature of the information that we get is much more hastily assembled and not as concrete, basically. There's not as much investigation going on or research. So what he wanted to do was slow journalism down to walking pace, because he believes it'll change the quality of the stories in his reporting. And walking pace is the pace at which most human relationships have been formed throughout human history until very recently.
This is our natural kind of state. Walking,
exactly.
Not driving and flying all over.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's trying to set a precedent for future generations that journalism can look different. It can be done in a very different way. And one of the things I think is really beautiful in his work that I didn't talk about in the film is he's developed workshops around the world. So wherever he goes to, he'll oftentimes lead workshops with local people in small towns, villages, or big cities, so that they can learn how to do slow walking journalism around the area where they live. And that uncovers stories that otherwise would be invisible in the media. So it's another really beautiful illustration of this idea of like what is made invisible through all the noise, and how can we make those things visible again by slowing down and through silence.
Beautiful. It's a really, really inspiration. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
They were incredible discoveries to make along the way. I didn't know where this journey was going to take me making this film. And that's the most exciting thing I think about documentaries, is the unexpected paths you go down that you never could have thought of when you started.
Yeah. So. How many years it took him to walk from Ethiopia to down to Chile, right?
Right. So he hasn't finished yet. He started in January of 2013, I believe, in Ethiopia, and he's now, last I heard, in Burma. And his next step, I think, is to cross the border into China, which he may have done already. The last I spoke to him was a few weeks ago.
So
I know it's been very difficult to get into
7 years
China.
already? Yeah.
I'm sorry, say again? 7
years already? He's working?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so 7 years. And originally he thought that the entire trip would take him 7 years, all the way to the finish line down in Chile. But he's only made it as far as Burma so far. So,
and you met him in some point of the trip, or you worked with him a little bit, or?
Actually, no, I didn't, because so it's kind of the same story I told with Rachel. So believe it or not, I had made the whole film before I met Rachel and Paul. And I had an earlier cut of the film without them. And I realized that it felt like something was missing. It wasn't quite complete. The themes weren't as clear as I wanted. So I spent about 9 months trying to figure out who else I could put in the film to communicate what I really wanted to communicate. And I wound up deciding on Rachel and Paul's being my top 2 choices. but I had, I'd already filmed in all these locations and I couldn't go back to them. So Paul was nice enough to agree to be part of the film. He gave me access to his full archive of footage that he had been filming with his walking partners along the way. And as it turns out, I had already filmed in so many of those locations myself, just like with Rachel. So all I had to do, like I was literally in almost the exact village where he started his journey. I was within walking distance of that village and filming. So I could use my footage from that area to illustrate those scenes. So, it's just so beautiful to me that we all wound up in the same places for very similar reasons, but from completely different walks of life.
Yeah, amazing. Let me just see if someone here dropped a question.
Sure.
Hi, friends. You can, if you wanted to ask a question, if this is the time, just let us know. I must say that I love the music in your film.
Thank you.
It is, yeah, I don't know who was the one that did the score, but it is really a piece by itself.
Yeah, I really appreciate hearing that. That actually means a lot to me because my background is really in music. Long before I started making documentary films, really, music was my main passion. And so the music in my work is actually one of the most important parts to me in terms of conveying what I want to. So I spent a lot of time compiling music from all around the world for this project. There was a friend of mine, Ben Eschbach, who did the original score. So like more than half of the film is original music that was written for this film. But I mixed it together with a lot of diverse music from around the world as well. And put a lot of love and care into those choices. So that means a lot that the music stuck out to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's every piece there is really brilliant. And I must say, your film is one of my favorite in this.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if it's ethical for me to say as the art director of this film festival, but yeah,
that means a lot. Thank you.
It's really beautiful piece. So I don't see any questions right now, and I don't want to hold you too long. So let me just let's conclude it with the questions of what you want the audience to take away watching your film.
Well, I would say that there's not a really specific thing I want them to take away. I deliberately made the film in a way where there's many different things you could possibly take away from it. And I love having those conversations with people where people discovered something in my work that I never thought of, I think that's one of the really beautiful experiences of it. On the other hand, I think, I really did want to convey something uplifting. It's not something I wanted to force, and I was lucky that I didn't have to. Just by finding these incredible people doing these incredible things and getting them to tell their own stories in their own words, I came across, some very uplifting messages that I think are especially needed in a year like this, where there's so much noise, so to speak, going on, and so many heavy things that people are dealing with around the globe. So, I mean, if anything, I certainly hope that people will walk away with a sense of awe and wonder about just how incredible this earth is and how incredible people are, which I realize is a very broad thing to say, but I think the film hopefully gives some really specific examples of how that can be perceived. And just that another thing I want people to walk away with is that I think people are more innately, what's the word? How Paul, when he's walking around the world, he expected to encounter a lot of danger on the one hand, but as it turns out, he found that people are by nature very giving and hospitable and kind and generous, and that seems to be the default way that people are wherever he's walking, which is not really how the media tends to portray the world. You know, the media tends to tell us a lot of stories that are scary and make us feel like everyone is more divided than ever. But when you get on the ground and on foot, that's not necessarily what you see. You see things through a very different lens. And so I think that's something else I want people to walk away with is, you know, that we're told a lot of things about our fellow human beings through the media and other main sources of information. But if you really get your information about the world from the people around you, even if they're strangers and you're walking through their communities, I think you get a very different perspective that I think is much more uplifting and beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Beautiful, beautiful message. Yeah, I believe people will enjoy this film very much, and yeah.
You know, I don't know if we're out of time. I have one more thing I could say about the music, if there's enough time.
Yes.
Okay, sure. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the musicians and the composers who are in the film, I actually started a whole interview series with those musicians and composers. So I have one installment for each person who put music into the film. And one of the reasons I did this is because I realized kind of in retrospect that all of them, first of all, they could all have documentaries made about them because they're all so interesting what they're doing. But second of all, a lot of their lives reflect the themes of the film as well, which was not intentional when I used their music. It was just something I sort of later realized. So I wanted to kind of explore all of their work, you know, in depth as well. So if you were to go to my website, which is steveelkins.net, there's an interview section where there's all these installments called The Music of Echoes of the Invisible. And I only have 5 up so far, but there's going to be about 16 interviews by the end of the project. And I'm putting them up every few weeks.
I will link your website into our website and Facebook, and so people can find it.
Sure, that would be great.
I believe, you know, the musicians, they express their inner frequency. So if it's, you know, touch you in this kind of sense while doing the film, so for sure it resonates with the message that you try to send out. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that there are brilliant people also.
Yeah, and actually there were some musicians from Israel that I included in there as well. There's a group called Tafalalt. I don't think they're actually around anymore, but they were doing music. They were pretty active over the last 10 to 15 years, I think. But they sort of, if I understand this right, they were basically mixing traditional Hebrew sacred music with musical traditions from around the world where Hebrews migrated to over time. So like it sort of is mixed with Moroccan traditions and traditions from the Balkans and from Egypt and just all these places where they had migrated to. Like you get to hear how the collision of musical worlds while still being Hebrew sacred music, which is really interesting. So I included them in some of those scenes.
Excellent. Great. So thank you, Steve, for your amazing film, and thank you for being here with us. And if you haven't seen Echoes of the Invisible, go and watch it now. הידהוד של הבלתי נראה בעברית. And thank you, whoever was here with us. It was great having you here, and I wish all the best to the film and for many more people to watch it. And
thank you.
And hopefully you will make some more films because you are a brilliant filmmaker. So we definitely will want to see more from you.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I'm working on some new projects now, so hopefully they'll get off the ground soon.
Oh, great. So I'm just close with few words in Hebrew, sorry.
No problem.
תודה לכולם שהייתם פה איתנו בשיחה המעניינת הזאת עם סטיב, היוצר של הסרט הידהוד בלתי נראה. אתם מוזמנים להיכנס לאתר שלנו, spiritfilmfestival.co.il, ולמצוא עוד פרטים על הסרט הזה. הסרט הזה יהיה זמין לצפייה עד ה-7 לנובמבר. הסרט הזה גם צירפנו אותו להרצאה של סטיבן פולדר, אז אתם מוזמנים בהחלט לראות את הסרט יחד עם הרצאה מרחיבת אופקים על סיילנס ומדיטציה ואת כל היופי שסטיבן מביא איתו. וכרטיסים אתם רוכשים באתר סינמטק תל אביב, cinema.co.il. Thank you again, Steve.
My pleasure.
Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
You too.
We will be in touch soon.
That would be great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Take care, you too.